Welcome to my channel.
I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you improve your English easily, this podcast is perfect for you.
So, let's get started and make English learning easy. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is modest. Then we will continue with gradually and to isolate. Then to show up. And the final one is no matter what, when, why, etc.
Okay, let's start with the first word, Eric.
The first word is modest.
Modest.
Modest. Modest is an adjective. It describes someone who does not talk too much about their abilities or achievements. A modest person does not brag or show off. For example, if you do something very well but don't tell everyone about it, you are being modest.
Exactly, Eric. When we say someone is modest, we mean they are humble, not too proud, and don't try to get too much attention. Let's look at some example sentences to understand it better.
All right, here's the first example sentence. Even though she won the race, she was very modest about it.
And what does that mean, Eric?
It means that even though she was the winner, she didn't talk too much about her success. She was humble and didn't brag or show off about winning.
Great explanation. Here's another example. He has a modest home in the countryside. It means that he has a small and simple house in the countryside. It's not a big or fancy house, it's plain and humble, as the word modest suggests.
That's right. It's a good word to use when we want to describe something that is not too big, not too showy, and very simple or humble. Now, let's move on to a short dialogue using modest.
Did you know that Mark donated a lot of money to the school?
Really? I didn't know that. He's so modest. He never talks about what he does.
Yes, he is. He always stays quiet about his good deeds.
That's what I like about him. He's modest, even though he has done so much.
I hope that dialogue helps our listeners see how modest is used in everyday conversation. So, Eric, would you say modest is a common word in English?
I think it's quite common, especially when talking about people's behavior, describing places or things. It's a word that's polite and kind to use. You can also use it in casual conversations.
That's true. It's a very positive word to use when you want to describe someone in a nice way.
Exactly. It shows respect for people who are humble and not too proud. So, remember everyone, modest is a great word to describe someone who doesn't show off or something that is simple and humble.
Good summary, Eric. Okay, let's move on to our next word.
The next word is gradually.
Gradually.
Gradually. Gradually is an adverb. It means slowly, step by step, or little by little. When something happens gradually, it happens over time, not all at once. For example, if you are learning a new language, you improve gradually as you practice more.
That's right, Eric. Gradually is used to describe things that change slowly over time, not suddenly. Eric, would you like to give the first example?
Sure. Here's the first example sentence. The weather gradually became warmer as spring arrived. It means that the weather didn't suddenly become warm. It slowly changed and got warmer step by step, and then spring came.
Here's another example. She gradually improved her cooking skills by practicing every day. It means that she got better at cooking slowly over time. She didn't become a great cook in one day. She practiced every day, and her skills got better little by little.
Good job, Lisa. It helps us describe actions that happen step by step. Now, let's move on to a short dialogue using gradually.
I want to learn to play the guitar, but
It seems so hard.
Don't worry, Sam. If you practice a little every day, you will gradually get better.
Really? So I just need to keep practicing?
Yes, gradually you will see progress. Just be patient.
I hope that dialogue helps our listeners understand how gradually is used in everyday conversation.
Yes, it's a great word to describe things that change or improve step by step. So, Eric, do you think gradually is a common word in English?
I think it's quite common, especially when we talk about learning, improving, or changes that don't happen quickly. It's a useful word to show that something takes time.
Right. And it can be used in both formal and informal situations. For example, you can say, he gradually became more confident in a conversation, or a formal report.
That's true. It's a helpful word when you want to express slow progress. So everyone, remember that gradually is a great word to describe slow, step-by-step changes over time.
Good summary, Eric. Okay, let's move on to the next word.
Okay, Lisa. Our next word is isolate.
Isolate.
Isolate. Isolate is a verb. It means to keep something or someone separate from others.
Yes, and isolate can also mean to keep someone alone, away from social contact or connection.
Good point, Lisa. And isolate is often followed by the preposition from. For example, isolate from others or isolate from the group.
Let's give some example sentences. I'll start. My example sentence is, during the pandemic, many people had to isolate at home. This means that people have to stay at home, away from others, to prevent the spread of the virus.
Exactly. Now, my example. The scientist isolated the cells in the lab for a special study. It means that the scientist kept the cells separate from other things in the lab. They were put in a special place, away from everything else, to study them carefully.
Good example, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue that uses the word isolate.
Hello, Mrs. Green. I'm calling to let you know that we need to isolate your son Jack for a few days.
Oh no, why do you need to isolate him?
Jack has a cold and we want to make sure he doesn't spread it to the other children.
I understand. I will keep him isolated at home until he feels better.
So, in this dialogue, the word isolate is used when the teacher talks about keeping Jack away from the other children to prevent them from getting sick.
That's right, Eric. Now, let's talk about isolate. Eric, do you think isolate is a common word in English?
I think it became very common during the pandemic. People often talked about self-isolating to stay safe and protect others. It's a useful word to know when talking about health or science.
Yes, I agree. Is it more formal or informal?
I'd say isolate can be both. It's commonly used in both everyday conversation and in more formal writing, like in scientific or medical contexts.
That makes sense. It also, isolate, can be used physically or emotionally. You can isolate a person physically, or you can isolate them socially.
Exactly, Lisa. For example, he isolated himself from his friends because he needed some time alone. It's about being alone, away from others.
So, to our listeners, you can use isolate when talking about keeping things or people separate. It's a great word to expand your vocabulary. Okay, Eric, I think we've explained isolate fairly enough. Shall we move on the next word?
Yes, let's do that, Lisa. The next word is show up.
Show up.
Show up. Show up is a phrasal verb. It means to arrive or appear somewhere, often unexpectedly or after being late. For example, if you are invited to a party and you go there, you show up at the party.
Exactly. It's like saying to come or to arrive. but we use show up when we want to focus on someone actually being there or appearing. Now let's look at some example sentences to understand it better.
Sure. Here's the first example sentence. Tom didn't show up for the meeting yesterday. It means that Tom did not arrive or come to the meeting yesterday. Everyone was expecting him, but he wasn't there.
Here's another example. She always shows up late to class. It means she arrives late for class every time. She does not come on time.
Good example, Lisa. Now, let's move on to a short dialogue using show up.
Did you see Lisa at the party last night?
No, she didn't show up. I was waiting, but she never came.
Really? She told me she would definitely show up. Maybe something came up.
Maybe. I hope she's okay. Next time. I hope she shows up on time.
It was a useful dialogue that helps you see how show up is used in everyday conversation.
Yes, it's a very useful phrasal verb to know. So, Lisa, would you say show up is a common phrase in English?
Oh, absolutely. We use it all the time. It's very informal and friendly, perfect for talking with friends or family.
And it can also be used in more serious situations. For example, if someone doesn't show up for an important appointment, it could be a problem.
That's true. So, it's important to learn because you can use it in many casual and serious situations.
Exactly. So, remember everyone, show up means to arrive or come somewhere. It's a simple but very handy phrase.
Well, it is time to explain today's last word.
Yes, Lisa. The last phrase we have is no matter what, when, why, etc.
No matter what, when, why, etc.
This is a very useful phrase in English. We use no matter to say that something is important or true in any situation. For example, no matter what means it doesn't change what happens. No matter when means it doesn't change when it happens. And no matter why means it doesn't change why it happens.
Wow, Eric, you explain it in a very nice way.
Thank you, Lisa. I hope our listeners understood it as well.
I hope so, Eric. Okay, let's look at some examples to understand it better.
Sure. Here's the first example sentence. I will help you no matter what. It means that I will help you in any situation. It doesn't matter what happens. I will always be there to help. I will help in every case.
Great explanation. Here's my example. We will finish the project on time, no matter how hard it is.
What does that mean, Lisa?
It means we will complete the project by the deadline, even if it is very difficult.
Good job, Lisa. And there's a small grammar point here. After no matter, we use words like what, when, where, who, how, or why to show different situations. This is a fixed structure, and it always comes with these question words.
Exactly. It's a strong way to say something will happen in any condition. Now, let's move on to a short dialogue using no matter what.
We have to complete this project by Friday.
Yes, and we will do it, no matter what.
That's right. No matter how tired we are, we must keep working until it's done.
Agreed. Let's make sure we finish it on time, no matter what happens.
It was a really good dialogue. I liked it very much. You can see how no matter what is used in conversation to show determination or a strong decision.
Yes, it's a very strong phrase to show commitment. So, Lisa, do you think no matter what is a common phrase in English?
Definitely. It's very common in both spoken and written English. It's a bit informal, so we often use it in daily conversations with friends or family.
And it's very useful when you want to show that you are sure about something, like saying, I'll be there no matter what. It shows you really mean it.
So, no matter what shows strong decisions or determination in any situation.
Yes, Lisa. Well, I think we have reached the end of today's episode.
Unfortunately, yes. I hope our listeners have learned new words today.
I hope so, Lisa. Okay, thanks for listening. Don't forget to study today's words. You're doing great.
See you next time.
Bye.
I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you improve your English easily, this podcast is perfect for you.
So, let's get started and make English learning easy. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is nasty. Then we will continue with remain and to be a waste of something. Then run over. And the final one is blow off steam.
Let's start with the first word.
Okay, Lisa, our first word today is nasty.
Nasty.
Nasty is an adjective, and it means something that is very unpleasant or not nice. It can describe a person, a situation, or even a smell.
That's right, Eric. Nasty can be used in many different situations, but it always has a negative meaning. Now let's give our listeners some example sentences.
Sure, here's the first example sentence. The weather was nasty, so we stayed inside. It means that the weather was very bad or unpleasant, so they didn't go outside.
Good example, Eric. Here's another one. He said some nasty things about his friend. It means that he said some very mean or hurtful things about his friend. When someone says something nasty, it's usually something unkind or rude.
That's a great point, Lisa. So now, let's move on to a short dialogue using the word nasty.
Did you hear what Tom said in class today?
Yeah, it was really nasty. He shouldn't have said that.
I know. It made everyone feel uncomfortable.
I hope he realizes how nasty his words were.
So, in this dialogue, Sarah and John talk about something Tom said in class. John calls Tom's words nasty, meaning that what Tom said was very unpleasant or hurtful.
Yes, and Sarah agrees, saying it made everyone feel uncomfortable. This shows that when someone says something nasty, it can affect what other people feel.
Exactly. Eric, do you think this word is useful for our listeners?
I think it's very useful, Lisa. Nasty is a common word in English, and you might hear it a lot in everyday conversations. It's also informal.
I agree, Eric. It's also a word that helps people express their feelings when something is not nice or when someone is being rude. But remember, we should use it carefully so that we don't hurt anyone's feelings because it has a negative meaning.
That's a good point, Lisa. Well, that wraps up our discussion on the word nasty. We hope our listeners found it helpful.
I hope so, Eric. Let's move on to the next word.
Our next word is to remain.
To remain.
To remain. To remain has two meanings, and we're going to explain both. The first meaning of to remain is to stay in the same place or condition. For example, if you stay at home, you remain at home.
Yes, and the second meaning of to remain is something that is left over. For example, if you eat some of your pizza, the part you didn't eat remains. Only one slice of pizza remained.
That's right, Lisa. Let's go through some examples to understand these meanings better. I'll start with the first meaning. Many students decided to remain in the classroom after the lesson.
And what does that mean, Eric?
It means that many students stayed in the classroom. They didn't leave.
Perfect. Now, I'll give an example with the second meaning. Only a few pieces of cake remained after the party. It means that only a few pieces of cake are left after the party. Most of the cake is gone, but a few pieces remain.
Good example, Lisa. Now, let's see how to remain is used in a short dialogue.
We've finished most of the tasks, but a few important things still remain.
We should focus on what remains before the deadline. Also, let's remain calm and not rush.
Good idea. If we remain focused, we'll finish everything on time.
We heard remain used a few times in the dialogue. John mentioned that some tasks still remain, meaning they are still not completed. Emily also said they should remain calm, meaning they should stay calm.
Yes, that's right. So, Eric, do you think to remain is a formal word, or can it be used in everyday situations?
To remain can be used in both formal and everyday situations. It's a versatile word, so you can use it in different contexts, whether you're writing something formal or just talking to friends.
So, everyone, remember to remain is a handy word that you'll find useful in many situations.
Yes, you'll hear it a lot when talking about staying in a place.
Or when there's something left after other things are gone.
Exactly, Lisa.
Well, we hope our listeners found the word remain helpful. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is to be a waste of.
To be a waste of.
To be a waste of. To be a waste of means that something is not useful or it's not worth spending time, money, or effort on. For example, if you spend money on something that doesn't help you or make you happy, you can say it's a waste of money.
That's right, Eric. To be a waste of can be used with different things like time, money, or energy. It's a negative phrase because it means something is not valuable or useful. Let's look at some example sentences to understand it better. Here's the first example sentence. Buying expensive clothes that you never wear is a waste of money.
It means that spending a lot of money on clothes that you don't wear is not a good idea. It's a waste of money.
Great explanation. Here's another example. It's a waste of time to argue about small things.
What does that mean, Lisa?
It means that arguing about unimportant things is not useful. Focusing on more important things is better, because arguing about small things doesn't help or solve anything. So, it's a waste of time.
Good job, Lisa. And there's a small grammar point here. After a waste of, we usually use a noun, like money or time.
That's a helpful tip. Now, let's move on to a short dialogue using to be a waste of.
Hey, Emma, do you want to go to that new restaurant tonight?
I don't know, Tom. I heard it was very expensive and the food wasn't great.
Really? That sounds like it would be a waste of money.
I agree. Let's cook at home instead. It won't be a waste of our time or money.
I hope that dialogue helps you understand how to be a waste of is used in everyday conversation.
Yes, it's a very useful phrase to describe things that aren't worth your time, money, or effort. So, Lisa, do you think to be a waste of is a common phrase in English?
Yes, it's quite common, especially when people want to express that something isn't valuable or useful.
I agree. It's a phrase you'll hear in both casual and formal situations. For example, you might hear it at work when discussing how to spend time or money, or in everyday conversations like we saw in the dialogue.
Exactly. So, everyone, remember that to be a waste of is a great phrase to use when something doesn't seem worth the time, money, or effort.
Good summary, Lisa.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, shall we move on to the next word?
Okay, let's do it. Our next word is run over.
Run over.
Run over. Run over has three meanings. The first meaning is to hit someone or something with a vehicle, like a car. The second meaning is to practice or review something quickly. And the third meaning is to spend more time than planned.
Great, Eric. Let's start with some examples. Here's the first one. The bus ran over a dog on the road.
It means that the bus hit the dog while driving and the dog was under the bus.
Now I'll give the second example. Let's run over the plan one more time before the meeting.
It means that they want to quickly review or practice the plan before the meeting. This is helpful to make sure everything is ready.
Good. Here's the third example. The class ran over by 15 minutes today.
It means that the class took 15 minutes longer than it was supposed to. Sometimes time can go over the planned schedule.
Perfect. So, run over can be used in different ways, and it's important to understand the context to know which meaning is being used.
Exactly, Lisa. And now let's share an example dialogue where we use run over.
Wow, the class ran over by 15 minutes today.
Yeah, the teacher really wanted to run over the final points before the exam.
I'm glad he did. I almost missed my bus. I ran to catch the bus without checking for directions. Thankfully, I wasn't run over.
In this dialogue, we heard run over used 3 times. First, Jake talks about how the class is going longer than planned. Second, Emma uses it to talk about reviewing points quickly. And finally, Jake uses it in the first meaning about getting hit by a vehicle.
Yes, it's a versatile word. Eric, do you think run over is common in everyday English?
Definitely, Lisa. It's a common phrase, especially when talking about accidents or when something takes longer than expected. But remember, it's informal, so you might not use it in a very formal letter or speech.
That's true. I hope our listeners understand the meanings of the phrasal word run over.
I hope so, Lisa.
Okay, I have reached the last word today. What is the last word of today, Eric?
Well, our last word is blow off steam.
Blow off steam.
Blow off steam. This is a common idiom in English. When someone says they need to blow off steam, it means they need to relax or release their stress, often after being angry or frustrated.
It's like when you feel a lot of stress or tension and you need to do something to feel better. You could exercise, talk to a friend, or even listen to music. All of these are ways to blow off steam.
Good explanation, Lisa. Now, let's give 2 example sentences to help everyone understand how to use this phrase. Here's the first example sentence. After a long day at work, John went for a run to blow off steam. It means that John had a tiring or stressful day at his job, and he felt like he needed to release his stress. So he decided to go for a run to feel more relaxed.
Now, my turn. Sarah likes to blow off steam by playing the guitar when she is upset. This means that when Sarah does not feel good or angry, she plays her guitar to make herself feel better and calm.
And now, let's move on to a little dialogue using this phrase.
Hey Jenny, you look a bit upset. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just really stressed from all the homework. I need to blow off some steam.
I understand. How do you like to blow off steam?
I usually go for a bike ride. It really helps me feel better.
That was a nice example of how blow off steam can be used in a conversation. So, Eric, do you think blow off steam is a useful phrase for English learners?
Absolutely, Lisa. It's very useful because it is a common phrase. It's an informal way to talk about getting rid of stress. So it's not something you would use in very formal writing or speaking. And it's easy to remember, too. Just think of blowing off steam like a kettle. When it gets too hot, it needs to release the steam.
That's a nice way to remember it, Eric. I think our listeners will find that helpful.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, that's all for today's episode of Simply Explained English. We hope you enjoyed learning about blow off steam.
Yes, and don't forget to study the new words you have learned.
Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.
Bye.